number one oil producer. Much of the growth comes from a recently developed technique, a perfected technique called fracking. It's basically using pressurized water and sand to free oil underground. And as you can imagine, the environmentalists hate the process. And yesterday, the Department of the Interior slapped a slew of new regulations on fracking on federal lands. As always, new regulations create more costs for producers, and they pass those costs on to you and me at the pump. Critics say the new regulations amount to an attack on the economy, jobs, and national security, as energy independence is key in an increasingly unstable world. Congressman Ryan Zinke is on the Natural Resources Committee, joins us now. Do these new regulations make sense, or is this about pandering to the environmentalists?
Well, you have to ask why. Why are they in place? Are they going to make it better? And the answer is no.
Make it safer?
It's just one size fits all. You know, in states like Montana, Wyoming, the expertise lies within the state government and not the federal government. And so that these one size fits all, you have to ask why. What's the purpose of the regulation? Does it make it better? In this case, it does not. It makes it more expensive, about $100,000 a well or so.
$100,000 a well, which then obviously gets passed on to consumers. And as we know, the fracking industry is going through a lot of trouble right now. Oil prices are low. A lot of guys are getting laid off, those kinds of things.
Yeah, and it goes at the heart of jobs. But also this idea that somehow Washington knows better. And Washington knows better than the government of Montana or Wyoming. And even Secretary Jewell, she said, well, I fracked. Well, I looked at it. In 1978 to 81, that's before the Berlin Wall went down. And that's when they were
before a lot of things happened.
Well, that's when they were fracking with benzene and diesel. And technology's changed since then. We have cell phones. And you look at what's happening now. There isn't one documented case of a mix between a frack and an aquifer. It could happen. You need some regulation, but you need the expertise.
Well, and an aquifer in Montana is different than an aquifer in North Dakota and Oklahoma and all these types of places. In the larger sense, though, as you see what the administration's doing on issues that are important to them, we've got this when it comes to energy and the environmentalists, new regulations turning down Keystone. The Internet, we've got net neutrality, immigration ruling by decree. Is this a disturbing trend? Is this how things are supposed to work in Washington?
It is a disturbing trend, because if you can't tell the difference between Butte and Bozeman, maybe you shouldn't be orchestrating laws that affect Butte and Bozeman. And if you don't have the expertise to look at fracking, or have never been to Montana to judge what is actually reducing the population of the sage grouse. And look, you know, I'm a Teddy Roosevelt conservationist. You know, we all like clean air, clean water, but the expertise oftentimes is on the ground. It's not from Washington. And the view from Potomac is a lot different than the view
What do you think it is? Do you think it's arrogance? Do you think it's Washington knows best? Do you think it's folks who, to your point, the last time they fracked was before I was born? What's going on here?
Well, I think a lot of it is the idea that we know best in Washington, that we certainly have the expertise, but that's not true. BLM has no expertise in fracking. Department of Interior has no real expertise in fracking. And so I think you need to push the decisions down where you know the issue, where the experts on the ground. We need more scientists and less lawyers on the ground. That would be a big help.
There's a lot of lawyers here in Washington. I want to touch on your national security background. Former commander at SEAL Team 6, has a lot of expertise when it comes to national security. How important is the concept of keeping oil cheap right now in the United States, keep pressure on Iran, energy independence here at home in the sense of being able to give whoever the president is a lot more options and not allowing the Ayatollahs to have a stranglehold on the oil?
Well, you've hit on the key. The key is energy independence. Imagine a world where we can export liquid natural gas, to Europe, to put pressure on the Soviet Union or Russia, which would like to be the Soviet Union again. Imagine being able to relieve the burden on export of sweet crude and be energy independent. The Persian Gulf would look a lot different, and we'd have a lot more options to play if we were energy independent. And we have everything in our favor. We have a shale play that is enormous, and we have multiple shale plays near ports. And this administration is going after our ability to produce energy, coal, oil, gas across the board, and be energy independent.
Well, I mean, to that point, turning down things like Keystone, obviously also the crude ban still in place, those kinds of things. We appreciate your time, Congressman. Thanks for coming.
Always a pleasure.
All right, enjoy the spring weather.
Thanks.
Uma?
Okay, well, so much for that warm introduction to